Okay, I'm going to hit record. There we go. Okay. Well, good evening and welcome back to my channel. I am Four Corners of the Page and I'm so glad you're here. And I'm also very glad because this is my first time having a guest on. And Alex, I'm wondering if you wanted to maybe introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, David. I'm Alex from the Books with Banks booktube channel. Love Malazan, and love the videos of yours I've seen so far. So thank you so much, and thanks for inviting me for the specific activity that we're gonna do today.
You know, we were kind of saying off camera. I've actually been watching your videos for a year or two now. I think my first video of yours that I watched was one of your Kirkanis rankings or discussions or things like that. So you've been on my radar for a long time. I don't know if that sounds intimidating or whatever, but I'm appreciative of your channel, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I've never had like the best production value or anything, but I do just love talking about these books, and yeah, I'm so excited to have someone else in the community to talk to about
Mate, at
them.
least
Yeah.
you have a bookshelf.
Oh yeah.
So let me set up what we're going to do today. I posted on Reddit about, it was about 2 weeks ago now, and I just asked the whole Malazan community for their Malazan hot takes. I completely stole this video from Library of a Viking. He did something similar with Patrick Leon, and I'll link that down below when it comes time to posting this video. But what I asked for was a bunch of Malazan hot takes, a bunch of Malazan controversial opinions. I was delighted to get about, what was it, like 200 responses?
Yeah, it was a lot, yeah. And
What
threads going off of like building off of each other just forever, yeah.
we started firestorms of controversy. So what we've each done, and is we've chosen four of our favorites. So in this video, we're going to discuss four of the hot takes that I found particularly salient, and then I'm going to give a secret bonus one at the end that Alex doesn't know about. We are going to rank these using color codes. So green means that we agree with the hot take. Yellow means we're kind of in the middle, undecided, neutral, something along that line. And then we have the red for disagree. We also have a wee asterisk on each one, just in case we want to qualify our answers. But Alex, I said this to you already as well, that I am hesitant. Having proposed this video to you, I'm really hesitant because I need to reread it. I've done 3 reads of this book, and I'm seeing certain comments on the subreddit, and I'm thinking I wouldn't even know. I need who's that character? Like what book did they show up in? And
Oh
so I feel like I'm
gosh.
kind of throwing myself on the mercy here of Malazan fans to maybe have some grace because I think I will do some misremembering of certain points. But yeah, it's good fun. And then we'll do a similar video on Alex's channel and with his 4 or 5 hot takes that he thought were really good. And we'll take it from there. So that's what we've got on the cards today. I'm really looking forward to it, I'll be honest.
Me too, yeah.
Did I miss anything? I think that was it.
No, I think that's it. Just to kind of follow up briefly on your point about seeing comments and not being exactly sure where the hot take comes from, or maybe all the details of the story that they're referencing. One of the hot takes I'm going to talk about, I probably wouldn't have picked out as one of my favorites if I wasn't in the middle of a Toll the Hounds reread right now. So yeah, so it's very time specific, case specific, wherever we're at
My
in our
favorites
read.
change with every read. I don't know if it's the same
Yeah.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. But let's get into it because I'm aware that we had about a 20-minute Malazans discussion before we hit record. And we went on the precipice of another one. So I'm gonna go with the first hot take, if that's all right with yourself.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and the first one, and we both heard this one before, I've shared these with you. Hot take number one. The Paran family are the main characters in Book of the Fallen. And I suspect we might have the same response here, but I might be wrong. You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
off you go. Defend yourself.
Um. Yeah. So I agree with I agree or agreeing with this hot take. I think part of it just comes from I mean, obviously it's all subjective, but my subjective reaction to this character's storylines and how no matter where we moved in the series, no matter which of them we moved away from, my favorite part of the next book or the next few books was almost always with one of the Paran characters. So I liked Gano's fine in Gardens of the Moon, but then and I don't want to touch too much on
Shall
Bellis
we,
and stuff because that
shall
might
we,
come up
shall we
later.
pause for a minute? Sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you. What we
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
clarify is whether we're going to do spoilers in this video.
Oh
Should,
yeah,
should we just go ahead and say let's make it a spoilerific video at this point? Because I think we need
a
to,
spoiler
don't
video.
we?
Yeah, I think yeah. So we're doing spoilers.
Spoil away. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. Um, yeah, so I yeah, just moving from book one to book two, Fallison quickly became my favorite part of that book. I maybe hot take territory, building off of my response to this first hot take, but that's my favorite part of Dead House Gate. It's much more so than the Chain of Dogs. And then back to Memories of Ice, I started to really like Ganos even more. And then House of Chains is where Tavor Paran comes in and becomes one of my favorites. Well, she becomes one of my favorites more around Reaper's Gale. But still, for majority of time, and it's kind of unfair because it's a trio that
Yeah.
that you can focus on, whereas someone like Carson might like he has to do a lot of the heavy lifting on his own whenever it's his sequences. But yeah, I think I saw that and I thought I kind of agree with that. Like I don't know if that's a particularly hot take for me. Yeah.
I'm so glad we disagreed. One of my worries for the video was that we just agreed on down. So I'm actually thrilled. But I wanna disagree. And I think it sounds really good initially, right? That these three characters are the main characters. And you're right, they do pop up in pretty much every book bar one, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I would disagree. The more I think about it, the more you can make a similar case about different characters being protagonists. You mentioned Karsa. I think Karsa you could absolutely say is one of the protagonists of the whole series. Even though
yeah.
he's not in it, that often, I think you could say that his journey is one of the central linchpins of it. Similarly, the crippled god, right? You could definitely make a
Oh
case
yeah.
the crippled god is the main character, even though he's only in it on the periphery for such a long period of time. Uh, Killenvid, perhaps, but certainly Dancer. You could argue that Dancer is one of the certain central characters. And Tavor, absolutely, but also, who am I thinking of? There's someone else in the tip of my tongue. Fiddler. You could absolutely say
Fiddler, yeah.
Fiddler is one of the main character of the Book of the Fallen, because it really is following him at the ground level for most of the time. So, although I completely agree that they are central linchpins of the whole series, the more I think about it, I think you could kind of apply some of this criteria to other people and kind of make a similar case. Certainly about the crippled god. So that's
Yeah.
I agree with that one.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, especially with the crippled god, and there was another character that you mentioned who I'm blanking on who it
Dancer?
was. Yeah, Dancer, yeah. I think Dancer is doesn't usually come up in the conversation around who's the main character. And I think he's really important. I mean, his whole possession of sorry is the second thing that we see. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, and then of course his just him throughout the whole 10th book is wonderful. Yeah.
I wonder
Um,
if there's sorry to cut you off, there's discussion here about, how involved the character has to be before they can have the protagonist status,
right, right,
which I think applies to Carcanis as well.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How involved do they have to be and how much do they have to affect the course of the overall story?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Great Gatsby would be a
Yeah.
point of interest there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've
Not Great Gatsby, not one of my favorite books,
no.
honestly. But I
Another
think
book.
it's just because when I read it in school, I had a teacher who, but basically, just because I didn't enjoy the book, she assumed that I didn't understand what was going on, or that I didn't understand the symbolism of things like the
Yeah.
green light at the end of the
Yeah.
things
Oh,
like
that green
that.
light. I forgot about the green light.
Yeah.
I'm reading, I just finished last night actually, Ball Lightning by Cixin Liu. And I love the
Oh
three
yeah.
bullet problem, but it has this issue with the main character being completely to one side for the vast majority of the book. That's an interesting
Okay.
discussion to come back to, actually, would be protagonists and agency in Malazan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, let me move on to number two. And I'll be honest with this one, I'm not quite sure which card I'm going to hold up. I've got two. Number two, there are too many plot lines leading nowhere. The series could use some editing. I kind of sliced two together there, spliced two together. Are you ready? Three, two, one. Okay.
Well,
Do you want to go first?
ashes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, let me do that as well. Complete middle of the
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the way that the reason that I don't totally disagree with it, why I have a little bit of a pause, or why I pause a little bit to say that is I agree that just because there's so many different plot lines and For a lot of people, some of those might not go somewhere. There's definitely parts of the books when I get to, and I'm like, oh, I just kind of want to get back to the characters that I really enjoy, more so than these. So I think I can maybe understand more where this hot take comes from than I actually personally agree with it.
Hmm.
But I do disagree. I think the series is pretty well edited, and I think if yeah, I think it's pretty well edited, and it's I can find something to enjoy about all the different plot lines.
Would you agree that there are plot lines that lead nowhere?
Leads nowhere is such an
Really
interesting
interesting
phrase.
wording, isn't it?
Right, yeah. Hmm. I think I I do agree that there are plot lines that lead their characters away from kind of the main storyline, which makes sense to me why then Erickson doesn't necessarily have to bring them back in near the end, like why we don't have to see Absalar and Crocus near the end. Yeah, I would agree there are plot lines that lead nowhere in close relation to everything going on with the crippled god and the bone hunters and Calance and everything down there. But I don't think saying leading leads nowhere sounds a little bit pejorative, and I think even if they lead nowhere, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't know.
I
Does
think
that
you
make
basically
sense?
just said what I would agree. I think that's the reason I put
Okay.
yellow. I would
Okay,
disagree
yeah.
with the editing side. I think the series is marvelous, and one of the reasons it is marvelous is it does just take that time to breathe.
Mhm.
But I do think there are plot lines that need nowhere. I remember when I first read the series and I thought, where did Felice and Younger go? You know, she's
Oh
got,
yeah, yeah.
see you later. Doing her thing. Um, that does happen, and the more you think about the series, the more often there are just people who are left. Um,
Yeah.
that doesn't bother me. I
Lorik,
think you're right
well,
with the pejorative. I think
sorry.
that's how it is. I think you're right in saying that that is deliberate and that is how life is. So it's not something that bothers me particularly. Leomund of the Flails, I know he comes back in an Esselmon book, but for the main 10, gone. Um,
Yeah.
but again, that's kind of how life is. And I think you kind of do need to do that at a certain point when you're handling a tapestry of this size. And I think in some ways it would feel kind of cheap if like Leoman got his comeuppance or whatever in a couple of pages, just so we could tidy that up and move on. I don't think that's how this
Right.
works. So I think you put a red and I put a yellow, but I think we're kind of saying the same thing.
We're around that same,
Yeah.
yeah. Orange maybe.
All right. Do you want to go to number three?
Sure, yeah.
Number three, the opening. Oh, I like this one. I really like this one. And this one got a lot of controversy. The opening of House of Chains is one of the weaker parts of the series. I believe the commenter said the weakest, and I changed it to one of the. You ready?
Hmm.
What do you think?
Yep.
Shall I go first on this one?
Yeah, go for it now.
Again, weaker is more negative than it needs to be. And actually, I think I probably could put you. Look at us hedging our bets. Um,
Right.
it's not necessarily that it's weak. I understand exactly what it's trying to do. You know, it. Robert Burns, one of the famous Scottish poet. I forget what poem it was. But he was often told in his life, you can't write in English. The reason you write in Scots is because you're a terrible English poet. And there's this amazing sequence in one of his poems where he just flips to English and he does a bit of English, flips back to Scots. And I kind of always see a parallel there in what Erickson is doing with the start of House of Chains. You can't write a
Sure.
single POV for an extended amount of time. You cannot write this Carsa sequence to be 300 pages long and pull it off. And I think he does pull it off. I think Erickson does successfully what he is trying to do there. I just, of all of the stuff out of the main 10, it's the thing I enjoy the least. And this is maybe just
Mhm.
a taste thing. Whenever I do the reread, and I am going to reread specifically this section in preparation for No Life Forsaken,
Oh yeah.
it's not. I always think when I get to the end of Memories of Ice, right? Okay, and now I have to do my 300 pages of Karsa homework before I get to back to the main
Right.
action. And maybe that's just because Karsa is brutal and he's not a fun, pleasant character to follow, or maybe it's just that something about that setting, or maybe it's just so it's so horrible. But weakest implies that the craft is not there, and the craft is there, but my enjoyment is not there for that as much as it is for later parts of the book. And I actually really enjoy House of Chains. I think that House of Chains often gets maligned in the fandom, but that opening sequence is not something I like to return to very often. So that's why it's quite. I would agree with this assessment.
Yeah, I think I pick yellow for, or I'm kind of neutral on this for a lot of the same reasons. Where I really start to enjoy Karsa isn't until much later in the series. So I can't really give this sequence credit for, him becoming that compelling of a character for me. So it loses some of its weight there. And then when I really enjoy this part, the what's it, Faces in the Stone, Faces in the Rocks, or whatever it's called, like part one.
Yes.
It's I I like it when he meets Torvald Nam. And
Yes.
from then on, I really love that. And then we start to get more and more hints of, okay, exactly where is this going and how is it connecting to the rest of the series? I think Erickson does that part really brilliantly, and I don't think that's weak at all, which is why I disagree. And it's sort of like it starts to make sense to me why we're doing this at that point. But yeah, I do agree. It's never been my favorite part, and I know some people say it's like their favorite thing about House of Chains, and then they don't like the rest with the bone hunters and everything. But I absolutely love everything to do with the bone hunters.
Especially their
So
founding at the very beginning. Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And so yeah, just with what it's surrounded by, that amazing climax of Memories of Ice, and then kind of this real beginning of the Tavor strings fiddler, bone hunters story, and meeting all those new characters. It's sandwiched in a little bit of an awkward spot. I think it makes it feel a little bit weaker. Again, I do love and I do think it's really powerful stuff once he meets Torvald Nam, and then he's reconsidering his relationship with his two friends, or with his two tribe mates, and um, Delum Thord and
Oh no, this is what I'm talking about.
sorry, yeah,
The names.
the
Yeah.
Baines
Beowulf
or
Guild, right? Right.
Beowulf Guild, yeah,
Ah, we did it.
Beowulf Guild, yeah, nice, nice, okay.
And you're
Um,
right. There is that sense of reward as well. Now that I'm just thinking about while you're talking. There is that sense of reward in that opening section when the things start coming together narratively, and you realize who Karsa actually is, and there's that callback, and then you come to the
right,
boat, the Solanda.
yeah,
Solana?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yolanda,
That whole sequence and things start to narratively tie together, which gives you a hint of just how planned out some of this stuff is. But
oh yeah.
again, just reading it on the page, it's never been my favorite. I think it's never going to be my favorite, but that's okay. It's still I appreciate it for what it does.
Yeah, I should say part of my disagreement too is I think the actual like technical like craft level, like the style level of the writing is very strong and consistently as strong. Like for Erickson, I the weakness I think comes in just how much I'm engaged in that part of the story is yeah, yeah,
And the fact, sorry, just to slightly
yeah,
spiral off, the fact this guy is cranking out these books basically every year at this point as well, and being able to change his pace and changes, yeah, yeah, I'm in awe.
yeah.
And have you ever seen the little computers he was writing them on?
No, no.
Right.
Or actually, did he show them in an interview he did with someone or?
I think he posted them on Facebook, but I think at
Okay,
House
okay.
Gates, he basically wrote on a smartphone equivalent,
Oh
a
my
BlackBerry,
gosh.
something like that, some little portable writing thing. Crazy,
Oh my
madness.
goodness.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let me get to number four because I know that time is escaping us. And at the start of every video, I always say this is going to be a short one, and then it turns out to be about
Yeah.
25 minutes long. Number four, and I don't know which card I'm going to pick up. I've thought about this all day. A Malazan TV show could be great. And that word could is interesting. It could be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that on the Reddit
Yeah.
thing and I thought, that's yeah.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Three, two, one. Ah, good. Off you go.
Okay. So yeah, and I think I mean this one is, as you alluded to, it's really all about how kind of we interpret the comment. The a Malazan TV show could be great. I do think that a Malazan show has a lot of challenges that could also make it not so great. And I also don't know that. I mean, like, yeah, I want them to be successful, but and I want the series to get more eyes on it. But I think the hesitancy of the word could make make sense to me, because just of how recent fantasy adaptations have been going, and just how TV shows are being produced nowadays. But also, like, I think it could be great as long as Erickson and Esselman are left in as much control as possible over what's happening.
Would
But yeah,
you?
again, I'm not sure if I'm even interpreting the hot take the same way that
Fair
you are.
enough,
So
but I'm wondering, would you be one of the anime crowd?
no, I don't think I would like that much just because it's not an art style that I'm particularly drawn to. I think it could be really great for people for fans of that style of TV show, but it's not something that I've ever really been clamoring for.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're talking to someone who was burned in 2017 by the Dark Tower movie. I don't
Oh,
know if you
okay.
follow the Dark Tower if you've watched that movie, but never. And before that, the Aragon movie back in the day. But
Oh God,
I'd
yeah.
never had an experience where I'd felt so upset by a viewing experience before, and I know I'm not alone. Um, but Malazan is a different kettle of fish, and the reason I'm hesitant is not because there's so much going on in the story. It's because for me, Malazan is so deeply interconnected with the prose on the page and the dialogue and but especially the internal monologues of the characters. So my favorite Malazan book is Told the Hounds. I think Told the Hounds is probably my favorite book ever written. Yeah, and you're halfway through it right now, aren't you? So hopefully you agree.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
how do you do that book justice? It's similar to you hear about these well, very different writing style, but you hear about adaptations of like a Cormac McCarthy novel, like Blood Meridian or something, and you just kind of think how? Because so much of that story is the words. Unless you have a man standing there reading out the book as you watch these scenes unfold, I cannot see that going well because you necessarily have to cut so much, which everyone says, but you also have to cut out the actual quality of the sentences to fit it. And it's so interesting, isn't it? The Gardens of the Moon was actually a screenplay, first of all, or second of all, because for me, it just doesn't compute. I mean, I guess you could do Gardens, but how do you do Dust of Dreams in a
Yeah.
successful way? I can't fathom it. And that's why for me, it's a hard disagree.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
I got a bit heated
that
there.
makes total sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be so strange to tell everyone, like friends and family, oh, we just finished season 7. Just wait until season 8. It's the best, and then it opens, and there's a really awkward corrupt narration going on in the background that doesn't sound quite right and that just doesn't quite match the tone of the book and then for that to be going through the whole thing and if the public just doesn't
Yeah.
enjoy that then what do you do?
There's also that thing
Um
of adaptations. Sorry, did I cut you off there?
yeah, no.
Of two things. First of all, I'm seeing that we have a timer left on our recording, which is brilliant. It
Oh,
means that we know exactly when we can stop. Um,
okay.
what was I going to say? There's also that thing with adaptations where once you view the adaptation, and this is why I'm scared for the Dungeon Crawler Carl adaptation, and I love Dungeon Crawler Carl, I do not want the image in my head supplanted by someone else's
Right.
viewing experience. And yeah. So, and I'd have to watch it. If someone did release a Malazan series, of,
Yeah.
of course, of course, how could you not? But
Right.
there'd be a bit of sadness there at the same time. But because time is of the essence, let me just very quickly tell you my Malazan hot take. And this is one you've not heard of before. And I think
I'm
this is
excited. Yeah.
a hot take, and I'm so thrilled. But if you've seen my Malazan ranking video, it might not be too unusual for you,
Mhm.
because my hot take, and I can do this, is that Dust of Dreams is one of the top 3 Malazan novels.
Interesting. I'm gonna do this
Okay.
for that.
Shall I, shall I,
Um
shall I go first on this one? Kind of lay out my case.
Yeah, 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 of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, Dust of Dreams. I did not like it on my first read. I'll be completely frank. I was like, who are these new people? As you always are with Malazan. Who are these new
Uh,
people? What are they doing? Where'd Fiddler go? We're leaving them behind. I was a bit confused. I was following the Tor reread that was going on, but it was
mhm.
hard for me. And then the second time I read it, I got it and I liked it. But the third reread that I did, and this was about 2020 now, I adored this book. I loved it to pieces. And I feel like I finally understood what it is. It's just this meditation on purpose in a situation that just feels incredibly purposeless. And that's why this middle, like 60% of this novel, basically nothing kind of happens. Or all kind of it's quite self-contained. It all gets wrapped up in a very bleak way. And I'm not talking about the scene that everyone knows about that is
Right,
incredibly
right.
bleak and harrowing, but generally that whole section is just the characters walking through a desert, wondering what's going on. And it almost feels a bit of the it feels a bit like the eye of the storm. But within that setting, that empty setting, and these characters not quite sure what they're doing, apart from the bone hunters who kind of know what they're doing, you have this lovely discussion from Erikson through his characters about purpose and about whether it's worth going on. So I think that setting and that style just blends together perfectly. I also just love the beginning where you start off with this madcap chase
Hmm.
through Letheras. And then I love the ending. I disagree with people who say, and I think Erickson has said this himself, that it's not its own novel. It absolutely is. And I don't think we need to
Right,
sell Dust
right.
of Dreams short because it really is this amazing novel that might not be great on a first read, but by the more you read it, it's the one that I just find infinitely more rewarding each time. And we've only got 7 minutes, so I'll let you agree or disagree. But that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
The main part of my disagree, is, or the main reason why it's yellow and not green, is that I do appreciate and I like this book, I think, more than a lot of people. Not quite as much as you. Like, I wouldn't put it in top three. I might put it top six or so, or top five, maybe. Yeah, actually, probably top five, for, if we're just talking the main 10. But I definitely am more, I'll say with an asterisk because it's more green, or it leans towards green more than red, because I like Dust of Dreams much more than the Crippled God.
Whoa.
I, I like the Crippled God. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
anyone to listen to this and say, "Oh, he hates the end of the series."
Yeah.
And I think that's just something with me, with especially epic long fantasy series. I rarely would rank the first or final book of any series as my favorite. I think I like sitting and waiting and kind of like breathing in the middle of a series more than everything ramping up at the beginning or closing down at the end. I and I think kind of as what you were talking about with like kind of this book as a meditation on purpose, that really allows, even though it's the penultimate volume, it allows Erickson plenty of time for this to still feel like one of those middle books, like where we still get to spend time with our characters without them being, forced towards some epic conclusion. Again, I love The Crippled God, but I like Dust of Dreams more than it. And I like the everything with the shake, getting to Carcanis in this one, and I think they arrive there by the end of Dust of Dreams, right?
I think they're still in the middle of the glass desert, I think, but they're with the snake,
I mean,
right?
sorry, I mean the shake,
Oh,
on their way
yes.
to
Have they arrived? Yeah, I
the
think they arrive at the very end, don't they? Is that right?
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and so like I love that, and kind of the like, oh cool, so this group that we've had bits and pieces of with book seven and now this book, or even book five there was some, um now we actually get like, oh, this is where they're going, this kind of an answer of their purpose,
Yeah.
um or the beginning of that answer, and then everything, um give me a book that is pretty much all about the change Mal, and I
Yeah.
love it. And
Yeah.
Dust of Dreams has so much of that in there. So,
I think it's a
um,
maligned book. Um,
yeah,
we are running short of time. I do think there is an interesting conversation about middle books that embrace being middle books. Um,
yeah, yeah.
and because I mean, you see this with Wind and Truth, which I just said in a previous video, I'm never going to talk about. But part of the upset people have with that book is it's a middle book that tries not to be a middle book. Um, and I think there's now this thing where we're coming the other way, where you have this time to swim in the characters and enjoy them, that people miss out on when they try to kind of trick the second book in a trilogy or the middle book in a series. Um, is there any, and we've only got 2.5 minutes, I'm watching the clock.
Okay, yeah.
Is there any series for you that has stuck the landing, where the final book is the best one for you? I'd be curious about
It's
that.
my favorite. So, well, I mean, talking about Sanderson, I haven't read that much Sanderson, and I wouldn't say that the original Mistborn trilogy is like it's my favorite trilogy of all time, but I like the third book in that trilogy the most, for sure. Trying to think of other stuff. Um, I can tell you a good example of why this is not the case, but or of kind of my pattern that Two Towers is my favorite Lord of the Rings book
Hmm.
for sure. And that's where maybe I first started to discover that. Yeah, no, I really can't think of. Sorry, I'm looking to
Post it in the
see.
comments.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd be curious. That's an interesting take. And listen, I could give you my Brandon Sanderson hot takes because I think that the final Mistborn book of the original trilogy is one of the worst books of his.
Okay, okay, yeah,
Um,
I love yeah.
but on our free Zoom call, we've got 90 seconds left. So I'm going to wrap this one up and then I guess we can move over to your video. But listen,
Perfect, perfect.
thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for bearing with me as always to my wonderful audience. I'm still very new at this. And Alex, I really do appreciate the conversation. And I'm excited for the second, which we're about to have right now. So yeah,
Me too.
yeah, all
Thanks,
the
thanks
best.
for having me.
I'll link your channel down below in the description as well if anyone's interested. So that's all from me.
Okay.
Peace. See you in the next one.